We're live. We're live again. Hey, everybody. It's been a few weeks since Motivating the Motivator. My last episode, I had my family, my siblings on, and of course, we got another cameo from my mom. So it was really cool to start off the whole series with her, and we ran the gamut. Boy, we had such incredible voices, visions, and power. Hey, cuz, we had all these incredible women that were on. I took a quick little break, and but guess what? I still have tons more people to come in and motivate you. People that continuously motivate me, and people that I don't even hope, I know will motivate all of you. So today we start off the season with Ella Fleming. So Ella Fleming is not just any old woman. She's my aunt. So I found it just like quite, and my cousin's here, my sister's here. So we found it, Envision Wellness. Hey, honey. So we found, where the hell am I? What am I saying? Don't worry, I haven't lost it. So today it's my aunt. So yes, my aunt, Ella Fleming. She is, that's her daughter, my cousin yelling, "Go Ella. Yo, call your mama, Nicole. Tell her to get on." Anywho, so we've got, hey sis, we have my aunt on today. So Ella Fleming is just one of the many women I am blessed to say I have had as an outlet. Let me just go through. My family, we are incredibly blessed to have the story that I'm about to tell you. We've had great grandmothers, so my grandma Effie and my granny Mac. We've had, and then I had my grandmothers, Grandma Imogene, God rest her. She just passed on July 22nd. And we've had, sorry, that's a little emotional for me. She just passed. My Grandma Mary. And then I've got my aunts. I have my Aunt Galen. I have my Aunt Gina. I have my Aunt Ella, who you're going to meet today. I have my mom. You all met my mom. So my aunt is just one of the many women in my family that I am blessed to say she is someone I can go to. She is my confidant. She is just a peaceful but powerful warrior. And today we're going to be talking about a lot of different things with her. So some of the stuff that we're going to talk about with her today, we're going to mention, oh my gosh, well, she grew up in the South, so we're definitely going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some uncomfortable conversations that really should be had right about now. We're going to talk about love, because anybody that knows me knows I'm a big old mush. I am. But even though I'm so much of a mush, I understand, and I am realistic about love, and I'm realistic about the work that goes into love, because guess what? Love and relationships, they're all beautiful. It's all so yummy and delicious and squishy. But guess what? In order to get to those couples that you see that really have it together, there's a lot of stuff where they're like, look, we got to talk. There's honesty that might hurt. There's all these kinds of things. We're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about mental health. And the reason why I talk about that is, as a lot of you know, every single day, there's my auntie, every single day I deal with depression. And unfortunately, in the Black community, we don't always talk about it. And we need to talk about it a little. We're going to have my aunt on today, and she's going to talk about that as well. We're going to and we're going to talk about entrepreneurship and money, honey, money. There she goes. Wait, lower it a little bit.
Okay.
There's my
Oh,
beautiful aunt.
finally. Okay. Thanks to you and Nicole. I tell you, I'm sitting here waiting and waiting, but at least I'm in. I'm in.
Yes, you are. It's so funny. Nicole logged on earlier, and I'm just talking, and then I'm like, "Yo, go get your mama."
And I saw her call coming in and I refused to take it. And I told your uncle to call Nicole because I was
That's
waiting for you to
hilarious.
come in at any minute. So he called her and let me know that he let me know that she was calling on your behalf.
Yes. And
So we're
Levon
gonna
said hi, and boom, guess who
hi.
stepped in the room? It's Aunt Ella. Hey, so everybody, I already gave him an intro. So there's my beautiful Aunt Ella. Say hey to the people.
Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Happy motivating the motivator. I'm all
Yes.
hyped today. I'm all hyped today because we're back. I'm so excited because we started the last season with my mama, and we're starting this season with my auntie. It doesn't get any better than that. You know what? Angle it down a little bit more so we can see more of you. My God, you look gorgeous. But you always
Thank
do, though.
you. Thank
Wait, not,
you. That's
not that
right.
one down.
A little technical problem here.
That's how it always
I'm
goes.
navigating this ring light for the first formal time.
Well, you know what? That is a good segue into entrepreneurship.
All
Because
right.
when we were talking about the fact that she's got this light now, and it's like all these different things we have to do now that the world is changing. And as entrepreneurs, we have to make sure we change and we shift with everything that's happening. So let's talk about entrepreneurship. Yes, you are an entrepreneur now, but let's talk about the road to getting there. So what you did before and what you do now. You're an entrepreneur now, but what do you do? So let's kind of take that quick road.
Well, again, I say hi to everybody. I'm excited to share with Latifa. Latifa, I am grateful for the invitation to come aboard and share this morning. I was thinking you were probably about 8 to 10 years old when I first met you.
I feel like it was younger though. Maybe it
It
feels like
might
it's
have
been
been
forever. I don't know.
right. I know.
Yes.
But of course, I met you through dating your Uncle Roy,
Mm-hmm.
his brother. So that's how you and I first connected, although we couldn't have had this kind of conversation like
No.
back then, right?
No.
But prior to my current life, oh boy, it's been a road for sure. Let me take you back. Let me bring you back to North Carolina. Latifa may have shared with you that I am a native of North Carolina, lived
Yeah.
many years there in New York, basically the Westchester County area. That's where most of my career was as a teacher. We moved, I said I met my husband, your uncle, there in New York, had our children there, and eventually moved back, for me, back to North Carolina. My journey started on a small farm here in North Carolina. My father was a sharecropper. My family in general were a mixture of farmers, teachers, and ministers who worked very hard to own their own property. Both my paternal and maternal grandparents had a great amount of property. That was a real prized thing to have at that time, to have your own, in other words. And I think that's where that spirit of entrepreneurship was first birthed. There was a small stretch of time that my father did work farms belonging to someone else, but then there was another segment of time, of course, that he worked the farm that was owned by my grandparents. And I saw how they took pride not only in that ownership of property, but they could see that it was their way to independence. I remembered both sets of grandparents. They believed in making their own way in life and not being so dependent on other people. They weren't selfish people per se,
Right,
but
right.
they saw the value of being able to be as independent as possible and not depend on others. Another impactful time in my life was when I went to Fayetteville State. I shout out some Bronco pride this morning. I'm a graduate of Fayetteville State University in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And there I got a bachelor's in business education. And I chose that avenue to be able to either teach or work in the private sector. And I've done both. Mostly teaching, though. I've had some smaller stretches of time, I guess, primarily during the summers when I was away from the classroom on a summer's vacation. I would still go out into the private sector and work during the summer vacation time just to get a feel for what was going on in the corporate world so that my teaching in the classroom would be more relevant. I remember my first real teaching job actually was in the world headquarters of General Foods, which is located, or was, I don't know if it is now, but it was located in White Plains, New York. And I taught as a typing and shorthand teacher. And my job was to prepare students. It was a part of what was called the CETA program, CETA. That's an acronym basically that describes a program that was started by the government to serve maybe more so the underprivileged, those who definitely needed to gain some job entry level skills. So we had classrooms set up right there on the premises of General Foods. And my job was to get the students typing and shorthand ability up to a point where they could readily walk into job entry level jobs right there in General Foods. So, and that was such a great incentive for the students because
you finished the program, you have a job.
Right. They knew they had a job when they finished the program. And it was from there when that program closed out, I came to New York City. And I remembered working a number of years there on 8th Avenue, I think just down from Madison Square Garden. And that same kind of program was being taught there. And from there, I took a slight turn where I did do a stretch of maybe about 2 or 3 years at the world headquarters of PepsiCo, where I worked as a secretary for one of the corporate executives there. And while in that job, the young lady working next to me was working as a secretary who had just recently graduated from a leading secretarial school, which any of you who are on this call that are in the New York, Connecticut, Jersey area, you would have heard of Catherine Gibbs School.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it was through her in that she had heard me talking about how I had a teaching degree and had a desire to really get back into the classroom. She encouraged me to apply at the Catherine Gibbs School in Connecticut. They were opening a new school there. And, you know, at the time, it didn't necessarily register with me that I was probably making history at that school, in that I realized, well, when I first got there, they were still in the process of getting all the desks and things assembled and put in place for receiving the students for the startup of the fall classes. So I got there a couple of weeks before the students did. And then as the time appeared or neared for us to start classes, it dawned on me that the only Black faces I had seen since being there was the custodian and myself.
Wow.
So I concluded that there was a great likelihood that at best, the majority of my students were going to be Caucasian. And sure enough, as the first day of school came about, there were no Black students. They were all white students. And actually, that was my first encounter in being the only Black in a white setting. And that includes college time too, because going back, first of all, to throw in a little more insight, back, I started Fayetteville State in 1966. I'm a graduate of the 1970 class. And at that time, Fayetteville State was predominantly Black. We have to go back even 4 years before that. I was educated in an all Black school system.
Mm-hmm.
So this journey that I was starting out at Catherine Gibbs, Connecticut, was a brand new situation for me. Now, I had some white and non-white college professors.
Mm-hmm.
I remembered having maybe 1 or 2 white students in my class, but I primarily saw all Black faculty and students in that experience at Fayetteville State.
And for a lot of us, that's the complete opposite. Like, we're seeking more representation. We're seeking to find more people that look like the students that are in front of them.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I dismissed the fact, going back to that first week at Catherine Gibbs, Connecticut, I dismissed the fact that I was the only Black faculty member, accepted the fact that I had all white students, and I began to see them just as students. I saw myself as their teacher and proceeded to go on and do what I was there to do, and was able to dismiss the fact that I was very much a minority in that setting. And it was a very good experience. I was well received and respected. And that taught me a lesson that actually we truly, especially African Americans, we have to have a real sense of self always.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No matter what walk of life we're in. Just because we won't always be received for who we are as persons or what we know. And then there are issues of life too,
Yeah.
that makes it necessary for us to be very self-centered and know who we are as individuals, and be comfortable and self-confident, be assured of who we are, because sometimes along this journey of life, it may be just you and God. So we have to be resilient in that sense.
Oh,
So
yes.
taught for about 32 years. And along that last 10 years of the teaching journey, I started leaning more towards what else there was for me to do in life. I started feeling like although I love teaching, I knew when I was 8 years old that I wanted to teach. As a matter of fact, I started teaching then because I had, first of all, I'm the oldest of
Yeah.
10 children.
Yes.
And I remember the children underneath me, there were several of them
Oh,
who I
Roy
was
is
probably
on.
the first pre-K teacher in the area too, because there was a couple of my brothers and sisters, when they started school, they already knew how to write their names. They knew their alphabets. They
You
knew
told them
how to
all.
count.
Roy just logged in. Roy just came in. That's
Hi, Roy.
that's her son.
But what prompted that was my parents got me a chalkboard
Oh,
one
so they
Christmas.
started this.
And that's when I started. I would line them up at my chalkboard. And around the circumference of the chalkboard were the ABCs. So I just pointed it out to them and had them recite them over and over again. So they went to school knowing how to write and read a little bit when they first, like I
That's
said,
you.
first started school.
I
But
love that.
as I would say during the last 10 or so years of my teaching career, there was a real pull, a real unction, if you will, that I had for doing something else. And I felt that it probably was entrepreneurship. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what direction I wanted to take per se. So I remember enrolling in a small business program at our local community college. And actually, it was a course that taught you how to start your own business. And one of the main factors that stuck with me, and one of the main emphasis that the instructor pointed out, was that in order to succeed with your own business, you first of all needed a vision for what you wanted to do. And just as importantly, sufficient capital for your startup. So I said,
Yes.
okay, I'm not ready for that. Now I came to that class thinking that perhaps I would offer some kind of clerical assistance to local businesses who didn't have clerical staff. Maybe they couldn't afford clerical staff, or maybe they just needed a little extra
Mm-hmm.
clerical assistance, and I would offer my services in that way and pretty much run it from my home. At that point, of course, we hadn't entered the computer age, so I had my typewriter, and I figured, okay, I got my skills. I could easily offer some clerical assistance to some of the small local business persons. But soon after that class, I met someone who introduced me to the Mary Kay business. And I fell in love with the product, of course, but more importantly, I grabbed hold of the business concept.
Right.
That was impressive to me because I
Yeah.
had been saying to myself throughout my teaching career, and particularly in those latter years, I was encouraging my students to think more along the lines of entrepreneurship. Now, of course, I wasn't encouraging them to dismiss the idea of working for someone else if it was noble and it was something you truly desired to do. Good, go for it. But certainly start embracing the concept of entrepreneurship. This way, I've always, always, always believed in having a plan B. And these days, somebody better have a plan C and D.
Yes. Yes.
So, and plus I knew that not only did I want to have something of my own, I knew that when I retired from teaching, I wouldn't just want to just sit home and watch TV and drink coffee all day long. That wasn't me. Because I knew I would miss that stimulation of learning new things, teaching new things, the socialization that comes with
Mhm.
the profession. So when the Mary Kay business concept was introduced to me, I could see myself doing that not only in conjunction with my teaching, but also at this time in my life. I remember so many days driving up to my high school campus in a Mary Kay car, a free Mary Kay car that I had won. And my youngest daughter, who at that time was
Right there.
around junior high school time, was driving a brand new car that I had already bought myself prior to going into Mary Kay. So, of course, that just blew everybody's mind. Her friends, of course, that she was driving up to school in a brand new car. But it also too
Hey,
I think
Nicole. Nicole is like, hey.
yeah, right. I would imagine. I said to myself at that time too, if I could just make enough money with my Mary Kay business to pay for her upcoming senior fees, which I accomplished that and more, of course.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
business has paid for some of her college expenses, although for the most part she had a full scholarship, but there still were other extraneous expenses that she had. Um, Repairs around the home here, tires for my husband's car, you name it. So I've had a good, successful time with that, not only during the time of teaching, but now, of course, I can do it full time.
Yeah, I love that. And I love it. It's your plan B. Actually, that is a plan B, C, and D when you think about what you said. We all need a plan B, C, and D at this
It
point.
truly
Yes.
is. It
Yeah.
truly is because,
Oh, Nicole.
you know,
She wrote your daughter
during this
sounds pretty cool.
during this journey of life, I have had to pivot many times,
Right.
and especially during this pandemic, as far as my business is concerned, you and I were laughing about me using this ring light. It became very clear to me certainly by the end of the first month of this pandemic that this company, meaning Mary Kay, was going to have to take a serious shift to
Hmm.
save the business.
Yeah.
So it didn't take us long to realize that we were going to have to go totally virtual.
Right.
So that's what prompted me to get the ring light, because I will have to do my facial consultations online, although we have a skin analyzing app now that will actually analyze the individual skin and tell her the exact products that I would need to send her or the company. Or if I just wanted to show off my products, I will have to do it online because I don't have those face-to-face encounters anymore. But
And we need to also make sure, like in the middle, we talked about that shift and making sure that we stay relevant, it's all part of making sure we stay financially secure. You still have to, we still have to, no matter what happens, no matter how the shifts go, we still have to find a way to financially be in a good place, or at least, I don't know, just to be more self-sufficient. It's what going back to,
absolutely,
yeah, going back to that, because it's harder when you're an entrepreneur.
it
To,
is. It
it
is.
is. I mean, in general, it's it's quite a show anyway when you're running your own
Absolutely.
thing. As I can truly attest to, but just always having to stay ahead of the game.
Absolutely, which
Always
we as a
stay ahead.
race of people have had to do all along.
Yeah.
We have
All we're doing is just
always,
pulling on what is in our genes.
absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. And speaking of what you just said, I think this is one of the key answers to uh, the economic growth and economic stability of the African American race is to do more economic growing. Economic power is going to be so key. Um, when I look at other ethnic groups in our country, and one of the first ones that comes to my mind are the Jewish people, who didn't necessarily become very verbal or overt with protesting against the wrong that was done against them, even here in these United States.
Hmm.
And I just want to digress a bit. I'm not against protesting. Anybody this day and time, I think if I were younger, I would be out on the streets too, carrying a sign.
There's all
But
kinds of things to do to protest and support,
yes,
you know that.
yes.
So yeah.
But with the Jewish people, first of all, they band together and they have spoken very loudly and clearly
Yes.
with their
Yeah. And we need to, that's one of the biggest things that we ever had was, I mean, we always have to go back to the bus boycott, but yes, we money talks.
it
Money
talks
talks
loudly.
loudly. So if
Loudly.
and you're right, if there's a Jewish group that's like, we don't like that, you can't talk to us like that, you can't treat us like that, you can't do that to us.
Yes,
They
yes,
and that's what has to be done. It is
exactly.
what's worked for us, and it can work again. And just pooling our financial resources, like you said,
Exactly.
it's all about that, and it's all about that economic empowerment.
Right.
It is
We will
about
have to
economic empowerment.
we will have to create modern day Black Wall Streets again. We must. Now, it is not to say that all of these other venues of protesting should not take place,
Yeah, but
but it's
this
going
is
to take
definitely a very important one. Because this
definitely.
this goes beyond protests, though. That economic empowerment goes beyond that. It goes towards um, going past surviving, because we're good at survival.
Oh, yes,
We're good
yes,
at
yes,
survival. It goes to what it does is it goes towards independence. It goes towards what you were saying about going back to your parents and owning property and not being reliant on and um, not having to go down with the ship should something happen. No.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Also, this is a time to dream again. I'm big on dreaming.
It
I
is.
remember during those days as a child, just there was a plum orchard down between our house and my grandparents' house. And I used to go down there on a summer's day, and I remember lying flat on my back, looking up at the sky and thinking about the places that I was going to go to beyond Granville County, North Carolina. I dreamed of the distant cities that I would travel to. I sometimes while I was lying there might be an airplane floating through the sky, and I said, one day I will fly to a distant place,
Yeah.
and I will have a great life. I wanted to have a great job, but interestingly, uh, for some reason, New York came to my mind first of all to visit.
I love
And I
it.
think
But
it
that's
was,
dreaming.
yeah, yes, it was. And I think it was because
Dreams.
I did
Yes.
have some aunts and uncles who lived in the greater New York area. They were basically in East Orange, New Jersey, and
Mm-hmm.
Newark. That's where they were. So I remember being excited about when they would come into town on this huge locomotive, and when it stopped, this great plumes of steam would burst out from the engine. And I said, one day I will be traveling or coming back home from some distant place. And that has happened. But what I was leading up to, it was during those times, although I grew up in a humble setting where we didn't have a lot, not a lot of material things, but we had lots of love, nurturing, and my parents had a tremendous love and value for education.
Yeah.
And every one of us had the opportunity to pursue whatever post-high school training or learning we wanted to pursue. But having those humble beginnings, having those strong, sound thinking parents, they instill some stamina and a great mindset for growing, excelling in life, dreaming, and knowing that there was so much more for me in life. And that's what we have to continue to do.
I'm just, it's hot, yes, but I'm just feeling that too. Yes, because I think if we don't dream, there's no possibilities.
We die. The word of God says, without a vision, the people perish. So that means dreaming about where we're going to go economically, where we're going to go just as individuals. We have to continue to excel and aspire.
Yes, definitely.
We'll give up on life. We must always, I'm not saying we always should have to be striving to make it, but we should always be dreaming of something bigger and better, no matter how long we live.
I'm going to shift to something else really quick, but it's just funny. I always forget that you're old enough to remember locomotives.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe someone on the call might not even know what they are.
Locomotives. Oh my God. I'm like, plumes of smoke. Wait, where are we? I had to throw that out there. I'm like, wait a minute. That's right. You're not 45, because God knows you look. Oh, would you mind telling the people how old you are?
I don't mind. I'm 72 years young.
That's right. Gorgeous. And no, that's not Botox. That's her.
No, just God's grace and Mary Kay.
Wait, plug. God's grace and Mary Kay that should be your new tagline. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Wait, I had to go. Sorry. So wait a minute. We gotta. Yes, jeans are everything. God's grace and Mary Kay. So let's just shift a little bit, because we have like I got 20 minutes with you, because you and I can talk forever, and I know. Remember, there are people watching who, let me tell you, if people are not just inspired and motivated by not just your words but your journey, they need a heart. Let's touch on something really quick, because they go together, so we could just spend like 2 or 3 minutes on it, 5 minutes on it. Because you told me, so this is kind of like, we talked about you growing up in the South, and you told me a story about going to a drugstore as a child that you weren't allowed to sit in, I believe. And
Exactly.
yeah, and there's the white water fountain and the colored water fountain, um, and how it felt. And then you talked about going back. Um, you talked about going back as an adult when you're allowed to sit there. Um, and also kind of lumping in with that a conversation you had with a friend of yours who is white. Um, and I love that conversation that you two have, because those are the kinds of conversations that need to be had, like very raw, true um, words, thoughts, emotions, feelings, and both of you listening, and especially her listening, because she would not know,
Right.
you know. Hey, Sharisa popped in. So just touch on that really quick, just that part, because I still want to talk about two quick things with mental health, and then Uncle Roy. I don't mean to put mental health and Uncle Roy in the same sentence, you know? But
Well, this story came to mind certainly as we have been confronted with the different uh, instances of racial injustices during this period of several months now. It made my mind go back to how it was in the 60s, I would say mid 60s. Mid 60s would have been a time in my life when I was a teenager and just beginning to really pay closer attention to what was going on in the world outside of my world where I
mhm,
live. And by the way, my parents did a great job in sheltering us and in protecting us from the issues at hand at that time, because truly I grew up during Jim Crow times. I remembered going into, um, let's say, this local drugstore that I was telling you about, which also had a lunch counter. And if I wanted to eat, if I wanted to order anything, I could go to the end of the counter
mhm.
and place my order. But I
Speaking
would
of locomotives, sorry, the train's going. So sorry, but go ahead. We can
that's
hear
all
you.
right. That's all right.
Keep talking.
I would have to take that food outside and eat
Oh,
it.
wow.
Uh, I remembered vividly the white only sign over the water fountains, or colored only over
Mm-hmm.
the water fountains. And you just automatically knew that where your place was, in other words, by the signs and the things that you were expected to do or not do. So early in my relationship with your uncle, when we had, I think at that point, we had become engaged. So I wanted to have him come home to North Carolina and meet my family. And during one visit, it was a summer's day, we were uh, getting some lunch in this local drugstore. And of course, we went in, took a seat at the table, and I started to feel so strange, and I couldn't understand it in the beginning. We got the order, proceeded to eat, and I just progressively felt so morbid, and such a heaviness came over me, and I can't remember if it was to the extent where my husband said to me, "Well, what's wrong?" But anyway, after the lunch, it came to my mind what it was, and I shared with him how, as a child, I wouldn't have been able to sit in that restaurant and have a meal like we had just done so. And it was, the feeling was that of such that I really wasn't supposed to do that day either. Although we're talking now, oh boy, 20 years later or so, but it brought back such bad memories, as the situation unfolded, particularly with George Floyd this summer, I said to myself, and I even said it to my children, I was trusting that by this time, meaning in the year of 2020, that I wouldn't have to, or this nation wouldn't have to be having the same dreaded thoughts or see the same kind of protesting that took place back in the mid-60s when I was a child. I was trusting that by this time that we would have accomplished so much more. And we have to some extent, but it goes to show that this cancer of racism was only in remission. I think this is a whole brand new wake-up call, but I speak a word of encouragement, though, particularly to your generation and even people my age, but especially your generation and younger, because you still have much more life ahead of you than I do. But the encouragement that I saw this time around was first of all, the massiveness of the protesting. I mean, it was worldwide, not only nationwide, but we saw people out in the streets in countries outside of the United States. Another thing that was encouraging was the fact that I saw so many young people, and the protesters were multiracial. There were some whites involved with the protests back in the 60s, early 70s, but not on the scale that I see them today. I have seen more youth being more outspoken and coming to the forefront to give their voices than I saw back in the 60s. Now, of course, the youth accomplished some real important things and great things then, but it's on a much larger scale this time around. A third thing, and then I'll let this go. A third thing that I've seen this time around is a bit more transparency. You spoke in terms of the white friend who called me, and it really was a call to apologize for what she was seeing happening to Blacks by the hands of whites, really. And she wanted to know what could she do to make things better. And in essence, the greatest thing that I said to her was to do just what she and I were doing right then and there, which was talking and listening. Not only listening, but being empathetic. First of all, acknowledging, okay, this was wrong. Secondly, what can I as an individual do? So it will take this country doing the same thing that this friend and I did. So I went on to suggest to her to also get involved with some of her local things, local programs like the Boys and Girls Club, which many towns have. When at that time we didn't know that school was not going to be convened in person. I was suggesting that maybe she go in and talk, give some talks in her local school. So that's the kind of difference that I do see. So therefore, I find it encouraging. And I see a relentlessness in the people today to not just stop. For instance, like with Brianna, $12 million is a lot of money, but that does not bring her back. It does not serve justice for her. So we still must keep talking, listening, and yes, even marching.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just like with you. Just not Ella. Taking action. Yes, Roy. Roy, Navy proud. Um, so we're a Navy family. Got some Army in there, but it's Navy family. Um, so really, okay, too quick. I can't believe it. Oh my gosh. Okay, we got 10 minutes left. So
Okay.
we da. I want to touch on mental health really quick because I mentioned earlier to everyone because I mentioned it a couple of times that I deal with depression on a daily basis. And one of the people, therapy works, yes, all that good stuff, but sometimes it's really just nice to have an Aunt Ella in your life. And Aunt Ella was one of the first people to not make me feel like this was situational because I was like, I don't get it. Like everything's going well. Why do I feel like this? She helped me so much. And even at a point not too long ago, and I was just deep. And you just talked me through. So just want to touch on that because especially in the Black community, we're starting now, which is, I'm so thankful that we're starting now to not look at it as somebody else's problem or Black people don't do therapy or those kinds of things. Oh, if you're depressed, oh, it'll be all right. Like we're starting to really have an understanding. And I say Black people, but I know on a whole, especially in this country, we just don't understand that mental health is just as important
Mhm.
as every other thing. It's part of health. So if you can just really quickly touch on it, like I know 2 minutes for something so important, but yeah.
Someone once said in so many words, you can't understand another man until you've walked a mile in his shoes. So I have walked in your shoes and I was able to talk from my own personal experience, how I have had to deal with depression and just allowing myself to be very transparent in knowing that I needed help to make it. Uh, I'm a strong believer in the power of God and his healing power, but I also know that he has people here on earth to help us. And that's one reason why it is so important too to have such a sense of self too, um, so that not only God doesn't bring us through our own battles and our own adverse situations just to help us, but we're to be here for each other too. In essence, uh, we are only human. Um, as I have already said, I believe in the power of God, but I believe that there is a such thing as his earthly angels here being to help us. And when we know that the load is too heavy, because during this particular time, during most of 2020, all of us have carried such heavy loads. We've dealt with the pandemic. We've dealt with the social injustices. We've dealt with life within the pandemic and the racial injustice. Some of us have lost loved ones during this pandemic. Uh, we are constantly transitioning as individuals as it is, even if it weren't a pandemic condition,
Right.
we are forever evolving as individuals. Life is steadily taking us through so many changes. Some of those changes are, uh, many of them are things that are out of our control.
Right.
So I find it so essential. The bottom line, I said, first of all, is to pray and ask God for strength, and reaching out to trusted friends and family to see you through, because none of us, God didn't put us here to go through life alone anyway. So just being able to be very real with yourself and knowing, okay, I need to reach out. I need to talk to somebody that can help me through this.
That's a good segue to go into Uncle Roy. and your love, your relationship, your companionship, your partnership, because what you two have is unbelievably beautiful. Our family's blessed to have had so many different examples of love through anything. And you and Uncle Roy are definitely an example. So if you can just really, really quickly, sorry, what do you feel is, what things do you feel are the secrets, or yeah, the secrets to your success? Because you all are successful, but people also understand successful doesn't mean everything is all happy all the time. Yeah.
We have been married for 42 years, and I have to attest to what you've just said. You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
So that's another reason it is so good to have a great sense of self too, because there might be some days that you might not like each other. But as long as you continue to can say you love each other,
Yeah.
I am always grateful for how the relationship started out. We started off as friends. We had met commuting to New York City on the train. And actually, there was a span of time. We knew each other for 7 years before we married, but there was a stretch of time when we didn't see each other. We had gone in separate directions with our jobs. And he showed up at my church one Sunday as an interim August, and the rest is history. But I mentioned the thing of friendship being very important, because that's the time that you can use to lay a very solid foundation, so that when the bad and the ugly show up, you can go back to, well, I do remember the times we laughed, we talked, and planned our family, planned our future, and being able to confide in each other. So there was lots of talking, lots and lots of talking in the beginning. And then I dare not say having God first, and praying, and just knowing that there were going to be some bumps in the road. I didn't enter this marriage blindly. I had been through a marriage before, which was pretty bumpy. So that's life with anything. You are going, as you said, we aren't going to go through this life on a bed of roses.
Right.
So I thank God for the friendship that he established, and then a commitment to the marriage vows, and I'm not speaking to say that there shouldn't be compromise. There may be a time where there's a need for forgiveness or acceptance of forgiveness, but having that strong foundation. And did I say praying? Definitely praying and asking God to lead and guide.
Aunt Ella, we're at the end. That is a perfect way to end. Oh my gosh. I am so thrilled that you said yes. I'm so thrilled. I can't wait to put this up and have everybody watch it. Because we had some people on today. It was lovely, and then people will get to watch it later. I'm just so proud to be able to share my family with everyone. And I got more family members coming up. So I can't go through something called Motivating the Motivator without including the people who have been in my life forever. And Instagram is telling me we got 20 seconds left. So
well, power to you too.
I love you so, so, so much. And to my family that was on, my cousins were on, my sister was on. It's like a little mini family reunion. And I love you so much. And
Everybody.
I thank you so much for being my auntie.
I love you too.
Love
God
you.
bless you.
Mwah. Bye.